Hi, so my name is Melanie Douglas, and I have a small channel that I go by. It's called Melanie Eiley, where I talk about a variety of subjects, including typology sometimes. So I seen the post for Sarah asking for INFP's input on INFPs and anger. So I thought I'll uh, I'll give my 2 cents on that, I guess. And so yeah, from my point of view, I know for me personally, I definitely get angry. My FI definitely gets triggered, but um, I'm doing better with not letting that build up. I find that younger INFPs, at least for me when I was younger, I would let a lot of things build up and build up and build up. But because we hate confrontation, it would usually end up being some sort of email explosion, like not even text message, because that could be more of an immediate response from the other person. Um, and of course, somebody can lash back at email, and you can ruin friendships, you can ruin everything. Um, I think INFPs, at least from my point of view, we do tend to wear that poker face if we're triggered in public by something, or something really bothers our FI, or whatever it is. We tend to just kind of go like that. And everything goes in and goes in. And we may go home and write about it, or we may go home and be completely different people by ourselves. Like I always used to say, I'm kind of a closet ENFP. I would get very animated alone, and I would let my NE go everywhere, whatever. And then I had somebody else tell me, I think you're more of a closet ENFJ, but um, I would let my anger out more in the written word. I write poetry, or just in my journal, like things could get very angry. Um, but I still found that if I wasn't addressing the other person, and then when I seen them, I would act like nothing was wrong, that would build up and build up. And that's not good, because that leads to kind of FI explosions, which can get quite angry, in my opinion. So now that I'm older, um, I try not to do that. So that's kind of how my anger manifests. That I've learned that if something is bothering me, it's going to be 10 times worse if I, even though I hate confrontation, and not that I want it to be this weird confrontation, but healthy confrontation where I'm just bringing up to the other person, so I'm not letting it build up. Because again, that's how things get ruined. That's how a lot of misunderstandings take place, because you're not saying anything, so you're assuming a lot of things, and the other person may be completely oblivious to what you're even assuming or thinking or getting angry about. So it's building up in you, and all of a sudden, poof. So yeah, that's kind of how it manifests in me. Um, and now that I'm older, I still hate confrontation, but I try to not let those things build up, because I know it's unhealthy. Um, and yeah, you can get incredibly angry if you don't address something. So I think that would probably be what I would say about INFPs and anger. And if there's I don't know, if there's like younger INFPs out there, I would say that writing it down is great, and I think we have a natural talent for writing, but it it's never really going to take the place of going to the person before it gets to that explosive stage. So yeah, that's what I would have to say on INFPs and anger.
How we deal with anger. Um, so a lot of different things came to mind when that was mentioned. Like particularly when it's like talking to my parents and trying to describe to them like what it is I actually want to do with my life. I like start to get defensive because I feel like they don't see it the way I see it or the way I want them to understand why I want to do something. So that makes me really angry and upset, which I feel is why I can't really have conversations with them. But at the same time, I have to remind myself not to take everything so personally because I know they have my best interest at heart because they do care about me. Although I constantly have to be reminded of the fact that they do care about me because I'm like really defensive about like outside people and like and I just use it as a way to like protect myself and not really show myself. Um, but yeah, when it comes to like defending people I love, like it doesn't matter like if anyone like says anything about me or like tries to put me down because like if it involves someone else that I care about, like I'm like ready on standby to like protect them and make sure that they're okay regardless of like where that leads me. So yeah, but usually I try to not show any anger, but I'm usually angry all the time or like I'm always fired up and I like but it really takes a lot for like the anger to be pulled out of me, and then once it does, it's like really intense.
When I feel anger, um, it de- it depends. Much like much like the rest of my emotions or the rest of the way I feel intensely about other things, I feel equally intensely about anger. And the thing is, my response is what takes people by surprise. It's yeah, it takes them off guard, and then they're like, oh, why are you acting this way? You know, over over this thing, whatever this thing may be. But you see, that's the thing. And then that, in and of itself, further makes me angry, further pisses me off, because it gives the impression that there's an expectation of how I'm supposed to be angry or not be angry, and there's an expectation on what I'm supposed to be angry about, you know. So yeah, yeah, it gets to me. And yeah, and the things that get me angry, a few of the things that get me, that really make me angry are insensitivity, when somebody is insensitive towards another person, or when someone is insensitive towards another thing, or in a very domineering way, or in any way whatsoever. And then what else? Um, when someone takes advantage of someone else. Yeah, that 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 triggers me. And what else? When my opinions or my feelings, yeah, or my thoughts on certain issues, or in general, are not listened to or are not taken into consideration. Not just mine, anyone else's in general, depending on the conversation going on. That gets me angry. And another thing is prejudice, or when people make assumptions right off the bat. And as an INFP, that's something that follows you you know, depending, kind of follows you. Either people think you're proud, or but then again, just when it's dangerous, when the prejudice, when the judgments, the initial assumptions are just wrong and life threatening and are just dangerous and just very unfounded, that can get me angry. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So just to recap, yeah, I feel anger pretty much as intensely as I feel everything else. And then my response, to the thing that has angered me takes people off guard. It takes people by surprise, usually. And that annoys me too. and and then I also think that because sometimes it's the timing of the response that really adds to everything, because maybe sometimes the anger piles up. It could pile up because maybe sometime in the past someone did something exactly the same and I didn't respond then, or I didn't react then. Because maybe within me I felt this isn't the time to respond, or I could try to figure out many reasons as to why the person's actions, why this isn't the time to be angry with this person, or this isn't a reason, this isn't enough of a reason to be angry with somebody, you know. But I think it's usually the timing as to when I respond and how intensely I react. And sometimes it's not like an overt, it depends really. Sometimes I just get really angry and raise my voice and yell, or sometimes it's just very cold. It's a cold behavior towards the person, you know. Or depending, so I just stop talking to the person completely. It really depends, and I think it's usually the extent, the extent of my reaction, depending on the circumstances. That's what takes people by surprise. Yeah.
My own experience with anger is that it is a very pushing kind of energy. Think of like extroverted thinking or TE as kind of like a very pushing kind of vibe. And that is what I think this anger like this comes off as something like that. For example, I like this analogy, um, like road rage. Like, I'm sure a lot of TE DOMs have road rage, because it's like people in their way, they're driving, people going too slow, people not following the rules on the road, whatever it may be. Um, like, oh, get off the road, grandma, things like that. That's a very TE thing, in my opinion, to say. And the kind of like the way that works is like I'm wanting to push others around, or I'm wanting to push um, obstacles out of my way to get to what I want. That is a very TE kind of way of doing things. And that is how I think anger comes out in INFPs. But it's not so much like bossing other people around, but for example, like physically exerting um, themselves, like hitting something or pushing something or throwing something, anything that involves taking something and almost in a metaphorical sense, pushing it or forcing it to do something out of a strong reaction. If we're angry or irritated or something, we may hit something or hit ourselves or something like that. That is, in my opinion, the extroverted thinking function at work in a very immature way. At least that's my experience with it. I don't like to show my anger to people. Um, if I do, it's usually alone by myself. Well, should I say, if I'm alone, that's when I feel the most necessary to express it, which I think most people do that to an extent. Without going into the types of anger or the different ways it expresses itself, I'm assuming that this is mostly about the erratic, I guess, explosive side of this kind of anger. And I would say that yes, that is a very extroverted thinking kind of force to it.
Hello there, I'm an INFP and I'm here to talk about what it's like to be angry as an INFP person. I've already filmed this so many times, but it ended up being so long and so annoying, so I'm gonna have to do it again. So, here I am. Oh my gosh, this is so awkward. Also, very, very awkward. I have a script written out on my computer that I'm gonna read, so it's gonna sound really unnatural, but just bear with me, okay? So I'm here to talk about anger, and I think it's quite an interesting topic because no one really talks about INFPs being angry. I feel like people just tend to think about INFPs as these peace loving, harmony seeking, and overall just kind hearted people. And the feeling of anger or hatred, even, doesn't really fit into that box. Also, I don't think most INFPs are even comfortable talking about this topic because it's something that we are ashamed of. Like, it's definitely an emotion that we do not like in ourselves. Personally, I can get very angry and it can get to a point where I'm like really furious about something. However, I don't just get angry at anything. Like, for example, I never get angry at strangers. I don't get angry at things or people that are not closely related to me. So, also something that we do is we do tend to keep a lot of our anger to ourselves. Like, we have a lot of bottled up anger, which is really bad because I think it's something I think it's why sometimes anger for us INFPs can get so intense because we never really let it out and we don't allow ourselves to be angry, which only makes the anger worse. So it's really bad and unhealthy, and we should all stop. Okay, um, I think one of the people that I'm angry at the most has to be my mom, and it's mainly for the reason of feeling misunderstood. I feel like this is something that can make us feel very, very upset, is when we feel we are misunderstood by people. Like, for example, I want to have a very strong connection and bond with my mother, and I want to be able to talk about meaningful topics and life and what I want from life and how I feel about the world, but I just can't. Like, I try to explain myself, but I always just leave feeling misunderstood. So, in a way, I'm also angry at myself for not being able to communicate myself to her efficiently, but I'm also definitely angry at her for not getting it. Um, yeah, but also I think the most important thing to consider when talking about being angry as an INFP is self hatred. I do tend to have very intense and strong hatred towards myself. I often find myself thinking, why can't you just be like other people? Why can't you just do things efficiently? Why can't you not procrastinate all the time? Why can't you just be a functioning member in our society? Oh my god, I feel like I'm talking to my therapist right now. Um, yeah, there's nothing that can make me feel as angry as just me being me. And that is something that I need to work on. I think that's all that I'm going to talk about for now, but this is definitely such an interesting topic. Like, I can't wait to hear what other people have to say about it. Okay, bye. I'm sorry this was so fast. Like, oh my gosh. First of all, I apologize for it being long and now, okay, whatever. Bye.
First of all, I would like to thank Sarah for letting me be a part of this video. For me, what usually grinds my gears are hypocrites, or people who bend the rules so they could always win. I also don't like it when people think they get you, or know what's best. I deal with my emotions by writing. Not writing about it, just stories. Or maybe music, listening to it while crying, or maybe making some. I sometimes translate my anger to sadness, or the other way around, because I don't like myself crying in front of others.